Canadian service members are often called upon to put themselves in harm's way. Unfortunately, things don't always go as planned. They return home with physical and mental injuries that change their lives forever. But thankfully, there are initiatives and organizations in place to help them along their journey. This is Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017. The Invictus Games are an international sporting event open to active and retired, ill and injured service members. Over the next hour, you'll join me, Anthony McLachlan, as we dive into the history and significance of Invictus and meet some of the key players for the Games. One of those people is CEO for Toronto 2017, Michael Burns. I had the chance to hit the links and sit down with Michael at the prestigious St. George's Golf and Country Club, the venue for golf for Invictus. If you've seen the promotions for the Games popping up across the country, you've likely noticed the mantra, "I am," which Michael told me comes from a poem titled Invictus, written by William Henley in 1875.
If you read the poem, as powerful as it is, I think it's really the last two lines that really capture you, and they read, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul." And I think if you asked any one of us who are part of delivering these games, we would say that those two lines really capture the essence, the spirit, the ethos of the competitors who will be coming to Toronto this September. That despite what life has thrown at them, despite the challenges that they have and continue to face, they remain unconquered.
Invictus began in 2014 with the inaugural Games in London. The architect behind the event is none other than Prince Harry, who was inspired after attending the Warrior Games in the United States the year before.
He knows, as a veteran himself, more than 10 years in the British Armed Forces as an Apache helicopter pilot, the challenges that a normal soldier faces, and he also appreciates the unique challenges that military families have, having been in service as long as he was. So it's very authentic for him, it's very real for him, and he wants to make sure that any one of the competitors and their families have an incredible experience coming through this. He's also, as you know, probably the most recognized human on the planet. And to have him as your ambassador for this universal cause called our military families, it's lightning in a bottle. It doesn't get much better than that.
Never stop fighting and do all you can to lift up everyone around you. I'll see you in Toronto.
With Toronto set to be the largest Games yet, I wanted to know what people can expect in September when veteran and active servicemen and women from around the globe arrive in Toronto to showcase their grit.
We've got 17 nations, 550 competitors, 12 adaptive sport competitions that we will be delivering. And then on top of that, we have one demonstration sport. And our demonstration sport for the Invictus Games this year will be para ice hockey. I can tell you right now that the competition will be fierce and exciting for those who will be there to watch.
The city will be electric when the Games open on the 23rd of September. But for the competitors, their journey started a long time ago. I traveled to Kingston for one of Team Canada's training camps to get a feel for how things are shaping up for the host nation.
This morning's ceremony is a very special event, as we officially announce the 90 serving members and veterans of the Canadian Armed Forces that will represent Canada at the 3rd edition of the Invictus Games from the 23rd to the 30th of September.
On the morning of June 15th, Team Canada and Invictus held a pair of events to not only promote the Games, but to also announce the final roster for Team Canada. Sharing the duties of captain for Team Canada are Major Simon Mailloux and retired Master Corporal Natasha Dupuis. With Simon in Toronto for the Invictus ticket launch, Natasha addressed the media at Fort Henry in Kingston, Ontario, and introduced the 90 competitors who will don the red and white.
We are Invictus! Yes, thank you.
Canada couldn't ask for better representatives to lead the country. Every serviceman and woman selected to compete for Canada has their own inspiring story to tell. I sat down with Simon, who shared his experience and his remarkable road to recovery.
In 2007, I was deployed as a platoon commander in Afghanistan. I was commanding a platoon of about 35 soldiers. We were on a night operation in November 2007, and we were going to seize some ground and give it over to the Afghans. Unfortunately, an IED, an improvised explosive device, exploded under my vehicle. It ejected me from the vehicle, made many injuries, unfortunately, which led as well to the amputation of my left leg. Unfortunately, two other of my soldiers as well died in the incident. My medic and my signaler, Corporal Nicolas Beauchamp and Corporal Michel Lévesque. There's a lot of survival guilt. You know, me and Michel Lévesque, we switched position 4 minutes before it happened. Had it happened a little bit earlier, then he would be here, I would have been dead. So it's just these little small changes, and in your mind you think, like, why did it happen to me and not him? So there's all this psychological aspect coming up. So I think I had to think this through, overcome this, and then after that make a realization I needed to come back to the mission.
Fortunately for Simon, he had the support of his wife, Kari Marishka Prey, and now their 4-year-old daughter, Nora. On that night of November 2007, Kari was out with friends when she noticed a voicemail from a satellite phone number, which could only be Simon.
So I ran out of the pub to stand in the cold to listen to the message, and then the world sort of stopped, because after that he started talking, and it started, "Honey, don't worry, I have all my fingers and toes, but there's been an incident and I'm going to need you to go collect my parents and come to Germany."
Wanting to reassure Kari he was going to be okay, Simon didn't tell his wife the extent of his injuries. When she arrived in Landstuhl, Germany, things became clear.
Eventually, a doctor came and explained that Simon had had his leg amputated, but that at the moment we couldn't go see him because they were in the midst of saving his life. It appeared that he had had a reaction to something, or there was something that had gone wrong, and they didn't know what, and so he was crashing. By the time that we got in to see him, they had put him in an induced coma. And so it was not until several days later that they brought him out of that coma and that we could have our first sort of interaction with him. I went over to the side of his bed and he immediately put his arms around me and he said, I'm sorry, I tried." And I was like, "Okay, I know, you tried." But then he didn't let go. And I thought, oh wow, I mean, this is a very serious moment. And then I realized that his arm was, with all of his medical wires and tubes, was caught on the back of my sweater, so he just couldn't let go. So, you know, it added a bit of levity, I suppose, to the moment.
No service member with an amputation in the history of the Canadian Armed Forces had redeployed to a war zone. Determined, Simon took the steps necessary to make history, but it was going to be a lengthy journey.
I wanted to go back to Afghanistan from the get-go. I felt I left my soldiers behind. I left a mission behind, but for me it was important to go back if I could. It took me 2 years, but I redeployed in November 2009. It was a great feeling. It was a bit of I've closed the loop, a sense of accomplishment. That bomb that exploded on that night, it was meant to arm, it was meant to maim. But in my case, I felt like I overcame that. I overcame that incident.
Healing and training for 2 years with no certainty of returning to the mission was daunting. But this long process was made easier when Simon found a new outlet.
Let's use sport as the springboard for rehabilitation. Easy, simple, and everybody can try and get into a sport. But I didn't think it was a rehabilitation process. I've done the physiotherapy, I've done the rehab, I've done, you know, walking between the bars and learning the steps. But all this is work. It's a bit boring in some ways, and it's made for patience. If you go with sport, it's a different approach from get-go. You're focusing on the ball, on the points, on the time. You're not focusing on, oh, don't get injured here, or do that bit more. And you're not a patient in a hospital anymore. you're an athlete in a gym. That's a very different perspective.
Next, I traveled to Oliver, British Columbia to meet Team Canada's only blind competitor.
You're watching Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017. Welcome back to Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017.
Before the break, we met Major Simon Mayu and learned that he used sport as a tool on his path to healing from the physical injuries he sustained in Afghanistan. But as I discovered when learning about Invictus, sport can also help veterans who feel isolated after leaving the service. Retired Master Corporal Lutz Stelzner is the only blind competitor on Team Canada and will be competing in tandem cycling at this year's Games. I traveled to Oliver, British Columbia, to learn more about Lutz.
I joined in 1980 regular force. I was in the militia prior to that. But in 1980, I joined the military. I went in originally as a POET, which is performance-oriented electrical technician. During my time with the RCR, I started to get sick because I have MS. It progresses slow, so I could do a lot of things, but I noticed it was getting worse. So I got out just in time. 2 years after I got out, I was basically in a wheelchair for a little bit.
Another symptom of multiple sclerosis is vision loss. Having lost most of his sight, Lutz faces many challenges, but he recognizes the importance of living an active lifestyle. Wanting to rebuild and maintain muscle, Lutz purchased a stationary bike for his basement. But it wasn't until he heard of Prince Harry's Games that he decided to take the next step.
Basically, I was relegated to my stationary bike for the most part. Then I saw an opportunity. They were looking for athletes for Invictus. So I submitted my name thinking, this would be a great opportunity because they did have a tandem class. And it'd be nice to get out and actually be able to ride and feel the breeze on your face. And I may not be able to see the scenery, but there's a big difference between just sitting on a stationary bike and actually going places. It energizes you a little more when you're outside. When you're downstairs on a stationary, it's not the same. A lot of things go through your heads. You're fighting a lot to stay on the bike for as long as you would on the tandem. I did it, but it's like I barely did enough to keep healthy. And then Invictus came up and it just kind of gave me more purpose.
Giving him something to focus on is where his wife Jillian Stelzner and his grandkids have really seen the benefits of the Games.
It's gotten him a goal. Going out on the tandem when he actually gets to ride outside, it's great. I'm nervous when he goes out, but he is, I think going 40-something miles an hour, I couldn't do it even sighted. So he has something to look forward to.
And it's that commitment to an objective that keeps Lutz pushing forward, despite the challenges associated with MS.
There's still some damage because I can't run, my balance is gone. There's a lot of difficulty, but I can pump my legs and I can ride a bike. Although I can't see to ride a bike, but on the back of the bike, I'm a pretty good engine.
Like Simon, Lutz believes sport has played a crucial role in getting him to where he is today.
I came home, I sat in my chair, I didn't do anything. I had no desire to do anything. And it's hard, you know, when you lose your vision, it all just adds up and you kind of go into a shell. But getting into an activity and being with people that the purpose is to go out there and play other teams and win, or go out there, play other teams, shake hands and defeat, it doesn't matter. That in itself, I find, just get you out of the rut that you're in.
Getting out of that rut was clearly life-changing for Lutz, and as I learned more about Invictus, I realized that is a common theme for many competitors. Training for the event has the power to give people a new outlook. Corporal Kelly Scanlon is a prime example of this. Kelly will compete in 3 swimming events, cycling, and wheelchair tennis at this year's Games. I traveled to Milton, Ontario, and sat down with her at the fire station where she is now a recruit to learn about her road to recovery. Kelly joined the Army Reserve at 16, and 3 months after graduating high school was training to go to Afghanistan. It was at this time she suffered a leg injury.
I wanted to go overseas, I wanted to serve. This wasn't something I was trying to find my way out of. But you start to earn a reputation in the military where when you're suddenly always saying something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, you kind of start to have people talk where they're like, she's just faking it, she's just trying to get out of hard work, she's trying to get out of doing the physical training. So eventually you just learn to shut up about it and kind of just move forward.
When she deployed to Afghanistan, the pain continued to get worse. And on top of that, going to war took a mental toll.
It's a world that you can try and prepare yourself for, ending up in an active war zone, but at the end of the day, it's something that you really can't be prepared for until you're really there and experiencing it.
Kelly returned home after her 8-month tour saddled with challenges on 2 fronts: the nagging leg injury that spread to other parts of her body and the mental trauma of the battlefield.
It's hard to push yourself to recover physically when it's really hard to just motivate yourself to do much of anything. So I think these 2 injuries kind of ended up playing off each other because you kind of just hit a point where the doctors, when I went back and talked to them and was telling them about well, this is what I wanted to do and this is what I thought I would do the rest of my life, they ended up just telling me, they said these just aren't realistic goals for you anymore. We don't know if you're going to be able to do half this stuff for the rest of your life, so you may just kind of have to readjust the path you want your future to take. And that's a really hard blow when you're 19, 20 years old, and they're telling you everything that you had planned on may be a no-go.
Kelly told me her mood continued to deteriorate and was eventually diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression.
Probably 6 months to a year after I came home, started to notice days where, for no reason at all, you feel just miserable and tired, kind of down to your very bones. And it's that feeling you get when something really, really bad has happened in your life, but nothing has actually happened. You feel like your dog just died, but there's no reason for you to feel that way. And I'd wake up that way, and it started off just a day here or there, and it kind of struck me as odd. But then it would be a few days, then it'd be a week, and then it was a few weeks, and then suddenly that was just what it was all the time.
Things got pretty dark for Kelly, but it was the love of her parents that kept her going.
You kind of think, if I don't see a future and everything's just miserable, what's the point of being here? And the point for me was, well, I couldn't do that to them. I couldn't hurt them like that. Even though I'd be gone and it wouldn't matter, I couldn't do it to them. So they were absolutely the number one thing that kept me on track, and they were the number one support system that I had through everything that was going wrong. They stood by me for all of it.
Bill and Kim Scanlon are both police officers, and in some ways, that helped them work through what Kelly was struggling with.
It was pretty obvious right from the very get-go that something had changed. Mostly mentally. Kelly stayed alone a lot in her room, very quiet, subdued, and Kelly's not that way. She's usually funny, outgoing, hangs around the family, but when she came home, she spent a lot of time in her room, and to the point where my wife and I had discussions about, have you talked to Kelly today? Is she okay?
Kelly was really noticing a lot and bringing to our attention a lot about the other soldiers who'd committed suicide. And she kept saying, Mom, look at this guy. If someone I think she knew who's in Kingston said, he had a wife and he had kids. And she goes, I don't have these things. So I think she was always comparing herself, and our senses were way up to the point where my husband and I knew that Kelly was, kind of having some of those thoughts.
All these soldiers are put into a very, very difficult situation in a war zone that we in Canada here can't even comprehend. And coming home from witnessing that puts them in a total different perspective, and was very, very difficult for us to kind of engage and understand where she'd been, what she'd seen. And it was troubling to us. You know, how do we help her? How do we get on with her life?
We also got ourselves educated. I went out and took some courses to help me understand what it would be like, what's the behaviors like, and how to approach it. So there are some things out there because of my work. It was important to know, but also how we were going to deal with Kelly. So my husband and I went out and, you know, read up and got as knowledgeable as we could about how we could support her.
While her parents were her motivation for pushing on, it wasn't until a friend introduced her to the Invictus Games that things finally took a turn for the better.
After months of training, I really noticed a big difference in the way I felt physically, the way I felt mentally. Like, I was sleeping better, I was feeling better. The pain that I was in had like significantly decreased. Stuff that had always hurt me to do before suddenly either was hurting a lot less, or eventually after so many months didn't hurt at all, which was this huge 180 for me. Like, it had never been like that before. And you kind of have a moment where you realize you're like, this is not just talk. Like, someone's come up with something here that actually has a way to change people's lives. And it absolutely did it for me. Like, that was a huge turning point in my life and in taking my life back into the direction that I kind of always wanted it to go in.
And the direction Kelly wanted her life to go was becoming a firefighter, a goal she has now achieved.
Happy, definitely very happy with where I thought I would be 2 years ago versus where I actually am now.
Hearing about Kelly's transformation, I had to learn more about the power of the Invictus Games and sport in general. Next, I dive into the Soldier On program and meet a couple of its key players.
More to come on Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017. We now return to Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017.
From becoming the first Canadian soldier to redeploy to a war zone with a prosthetic, to finding a new purpose, to overcoming the odds and fulfilling one's goals, we've met some remarkable individuals so far, but how did they get there? Enter Soldier On. Founded in August of 2006, the program has aided in the rehabilitation of over 3,000 Canadian service members. Greg Lagacé is the organization's founder and explained to me how this idea of using sport as a rehabilitator is not a new concept.
It was actually born out of World War II, where a neurosurgeon, Dr. Gutman, used sport as part of the recovery of injured British soldiers coming back from the battlefield in Europe. And he saw it as a way to expedite the physical and mental health recovery. So really what we're doing at Soldier On is we're kind of carrying on that torch that he's giving to us by ensuring that we're including sport in the rehab of our own Canadian men and women who've acquired a physical or mental health illness or injury.
From World War II to modern day, utilizing sport has evolved. The Soldier On program offers a number of resources and opportunities for those seeking help.
We run like 40 to 50 events a year now, and it's incredible. We're trying to decentralize them and be more of an ongoing basis. We're going to try to run more regional events and then hopefully more ongoing programs, like 8 to 12-week programs, which from anybody who's in sport development or any development, you want a program, you'll understand that has a lot more success rate than bringing people together for a short period of time, and then you kind of lose a little bit of that, not control, but ability to really help them from a sustainability perspective.
One way Soldier On is addressing sustainability is through social media. The ability to connect the ill and injured across the country has been incredibly valuable.
And so you see a lot of chatter on these. They talk about sport-specific stuff, but a lot of times it'll just be, hey, I'm having a bad day, and do you have any advice for me? And so those two things combined, we've been able to try to maintain this connection amongst the injured.
Since founding the program, Greg has passed the reins over to a veteran who knows firsthand the struggles ill and injured soldiers face when returning from the battlefield. Retired Major and now Senior Manager of Soldier On, Jay Fako was injured early during the mission in Afghanistan.
In 2004, it was a roadside suicide bomber. It was about 4 feet from my vehicle, and I was the closest to him. He had 2 mortars strapped to him, and I took the brunt of the blast. Unfortunately, my signaler at the time, Corporal James Murphy, was killed. He was the furthest away from it, and really it comes down to luck at that time. If I was sitting a centimeter to the right, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. It's how close it went to my neck. I received multiple shrapnel wounds all down my right side of my body, through my knee, through my shoulder, my neck, and then the major one in my eye that left me blind in my right eye. Again, luck really is what it comes down to.
Unfortunately for Jay, when he returned home, Soldier On didn't exist. But having an athletic background, his first instinct was to prove to himself he could still do the things that made him happy.
I started using sport instantly. It was only a month back in Canada. I wasn't even fully healed then. There was a hockey game going on. I said, I got to get out and play hockey. Mentally, it was probably the best thing I did for my recovery. The doctors kind of said, you shouldn't have done that, but I didn't care.
Jay was fortunate to have sport in his life before his injury and recognizes the benefits it can have on one's life. He has a message for anyone who may be hesitant to take the first step and ask for help.
The first thing they need to do is accept that they need support and know it's okay to seek. Know this is a non-judgmental environment. It's safe, it's secure, there's no pressure at all. If you come to a sports camp, and you're feeling a bit anxious, hey, go take a breather, it's okay. There's no pressure whatsoever. We want to see you out, and we'll build off that as you go down the road. The road of recovery, it can be lonely and it can be challenging, but if you stick with it and you keep on moving forward. I would never say anybody fully recovers, because you never fully recover from something like that, but I've come as close as you can get, and I have great people around me and continue to, soldier on.
And Jay wants that for everyone else. Major Simon Mayu is a great example of someone who has used the program to its full potential. He's a strong advocate for the initiative and others like it.
Soldier On is there, and it's there to stay. It's key that whenever another soldier might get injured, we're still there, and we still have our organizations in place. More organizations like Soldier On, yes, of course, definitely. Or civilian ones, private ones, like True Patriot Love is a great organization too, that do great work. There's other smaller organizations that are trying very hard as well.
The results speak for themselves. 3,200 ill and injured Canadian service members have utilized the Soldier On program to get their lives back on track. As Simon mentioned, the organization can't do it alone. True Patriot Love has been supporting military families since its inception in 2009 and is responsible for bringing the Invictus Games to Toronto. Next, I continue my conversation on the golf course with CEO of the Games, Michael Burns, and discover his involvement in True Patriot Love.
Stay tuned for more Road to Recovery Invictus Games 2017. This is Road to Recovery Invictus Games 2017.
Earlier in the program, I introduced you to CEO of Invictus Games Toronto 2017, Michael Burns, at St. George's Golf and Country Club in Etobicoke. The beautiful and historic venue will host the golfers on September 26th, and I thought it was the perfect place to get a better understanding of what makes the man behind the games tick. But not before we played a few holes.
Oh, I like this. Oh! Oh, yeah. Nice. Well, that's the best part of the day.
When we got to the clubhouse, Michael started by telling me how he originally got involved with supporting service members and their families.
A good friend of mine, his son was killed in Afghanistan. And we've all been to, our fair share of funerals, but to be at a funeral for a fallen soldier is pretty unique. And I remember on the way home off of that experience sort of thinking about what more our generation ought to be doing to help support our military families.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so
But
much.
Michael didn't just think about what could be done. He acted and created true patriot love.
A couple weeks later, a good friend and I got together talking about that experience as well as his experience having just met then Chief of Defense Rick Hillier. Rick Hillier had established something called the Military Families Fund, and we agreed sort of right then and there to raise $1 million for the fund through a dinner. And with the great support of many others who came on board, we hosted our first event on the eve of Remembrance Day in 2009, but we didn't raise $1 million. In fact, what we ended up raising was more than $2 million in one night.
As financially successful as the night was, what Michael learned was just as important.
The lessons coming off of that evening were really two things. One is that for all of those involved, including myself, this wouldn't be one time, it would be a lifetime commitment. And second of all, that when given an opportunity to express their gratitude and their support for our military families, whether it's through a dinner, whether it's at a golf tournament, or it's at any other event that's hosted from time to time across the country, including Remembrance Day, Canadians show up.
That unrelenting support is the reason Michael and his team pushed so hard to bring the games to our backyard. On a personal level, he is proud of his involvement.
I think I speak on behalf of the entire organization that it's such an honor to be involved with these games. It's such an honor to be given a front row seat to be staging something that we know is already having an incredible impact in the lives of so many deserving Canadians and their families. You know, to be a part of these, what I would describe as historic games, and to be able to bring them to your country and to a city that you grew up in and have been living in your entire life, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
As important as the event is, Michael wants 3 major things to live on after the closing ceremonies.
I think, you know, first and foremost, we want to make sure that there's a legacy for our military families, to ensure that there's ongoing support for great programming across Canada. We see a real opportunity to raise awareness and support around all of the great innovation and research that's happening at more than 40 academic universities across Canada, who have brought together close to 800 academics, researchers, clinicians, physicians, whose primary work is on the physical and mental health of our military veterans and their families. And we also think that there's a great opportunity for us coming out of these games to expand adaptive sport programs. The games are going to demonstrate the power of adaptive sport, and I think we'd miss a huge opportunity if we didn't think about ways of expanding those opportunities to hundreds, if not thousands more, who may not have the chance at future games to represent Canada.
Those are all admirable goals and will leave an impressive legacy for the event. But Michael's mention of the research and the anecdotal evidence I've witnessed firsthand made me want to dive deeper into this area. So I visited the Invictus offices in downtown Toronto to meet Dr. Selina Shirazapur from Dalhousie University, who will quantify the significance of the competition.
We're looking at the impact of the games, and basically the idea of that is what experiences are competitors having and what role does that experience have in influencing their life after the games and influencing their recovery and their quality of life. We're also, as part of that, looking at family members and friends. So one of the really unique aspects of the games, compared really to any other type of parasport event, is how central family and friends are to the games and to how the games are delivered. So seeing our family and friends gaining some benefit from being involved.
Selina is also looking to gauge how the games will affect the public.
Big events can potentially have an impact how individuals then see the individual with an illness and an injury, thus subsequently any stigma they may experience in society. So we're tracking Canadians' perceptions and seeing whether the games impacts that long term.
The preliminary results of Selina's study will be released during the games in September. But for now, it's important to recognize that the impact of the games is being examined, and that knowledge will influence future events. Coming up, I check back in with our competitors and their families. Plus, I look at the people who make an event of this magnitude possible. the volunteers.
More to come on Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017. We now return to Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017.
There are so many great sports that will be on display at this year's games. From wheelchair rugby, basketball and tennis, to cycling, swimming, track and field, archery, and so much more. I wanted to get a feel for some of these events firsthand, so I turned to our 3 competitors so they could teach me their craft. First, I traveled to Quebec to meet Simon at CFB Valcartier's training facility, where he gave me some tips on sprinting out of a 3-point stance.
Yeah, bend your knee, and ready, set, go.
After a few sprints focusing on our technique, Simon took me through the weights section and abdominal portion of his training, including a machine to build leg strength.
Try with one leg.
One leg. You made it look easy.
Although we focused on running skills, Simon will also be competing in seated volleyball. After a quick stretch to look after the muscles, it was time to say goodbye.
Good luck in September at the games.
Thank you.
Let's head over to Oliver, British Columbia, where I really got out of my comfort zone and onto the tandem bike with Lutz. To get me acclimated as his pilot, he began laying out some guidelines for communication.
3, 2, 1, go. You kind of kick off and push down at the same time. Get the momentum, start pedaling.
Seems easy enough. Let's get rolling.
3, 2, 1.
Getting started is the easy part. More importantly is knowing how to stop the bike safely.
As soon as I hear the prepare to stop, I unclip. Then it's 3, 2, 1, stop. Our right foot's come down. That way we don't fall over.
That was a lot of fun, and thankfully for both of us, we didn't experience any road rash. Lastly, Kelly invited me to the Ontario Racket Club in Mississauga to test my motor skills at wheelchair tennis. Being in a wheelchair is new to Kelly, because it's not an aid she uses in her everyday life. On top of that, she had never played the game. I quickly learned just how difficult it is to get around with a racket in hand.
Yes, it's definitely been a unique learning experience, that's for sure. I'd like to see you moving around. All the other rules are the same. The only difference for wheelchair tennis is that you get 2 bounces instead of 1.
These sports have played such a big role in each of our competitors' lives, helping them overcome tremendous obstacles. Pulling back the shades on their road to recovery and sharing their stories is a vulnerable act. That's also the case for the families I spoke to. This connection of family and military life is recognized by the team at Invictus Toronto and has been made a focal point for the games, as Michael Burns told me.
You can't recover alone, that you have to have family support and your network of friends to help you get through these tough and difficult times. And I think these games are a reflection of that. They recognize the importance of our military families, whose sacrifices often go unnoticed. So our entire narrative for the Invictus Games in Toronto this year is really around the family.
For Kari, being able to connect with others who have lived through these challenges is invaluable.
The families, they also have their moments of what do you do, or what have you done, or what are your experiences and how have you reacted? What are your coping mechanisms? And what questions do your children have?
Joining in Simon's workout routine has been a fun way for his family to feel more involved in not only the games, but his rehabilitation too. And even Simon's daughter Nora gets into it.
You know, she's 4, but she'll do a lap with me and she's gonna compete, and then she doesn't look around, like she's focused and she wants to go fast, and she's amazing. And you know, she's got this mentality that, yeah, Papa is a runner, Papa runs. Papa is not a guy who's lost a leg and, you know, he's an athlete and he runs.
As special as these moments are, as Nora grows older, Simon hopes his decisions reflect positively upon her.
Our kids, they're sponges. They learn so much from us. So whatever you do, whatever choice you make, it will impact them. So I just hope that the choice I made with my career is gonna have a good effect on her.
Kari wants two things for Nora when she attends the games.
I want her to have fun. I think all the children are going to have a great time at the Invictus Games. I think they should also take away that, that this is determination and courage. This night might not be your first and best talent, but you're putting yourself out there. And so that, I think, is an excellent example for children, that you are capable of picking yourself up and moving on and moving forward.
Moving forward is exactly what Lutz and his wife Jillian have learned to do together. Jillian has been inspired by what Invictus stands for, but is still wary whenever Lutz hops on the tandem.
I worry. Kind of my job sometimes. But it's great to see him go out and enjoy outside. And the games have given that to him.
Lutz told me, looking back on his days in the military, if he was healthy, he'd still be serving. But these are his circumstances, and looking forward is his priority.
Your biggest competitor that you should be looking at to beat is the you of yesterday. So if every day you go out to beat anybody, beat the guy you were yesterday. And that works in sports and that works in life.
Finding a turning point to spark your recovery isn't easy. There's no blueprint or defined guidelines. Each case is as unique as the individual. Kelly Scanlon had tried other physical rehabs, but nothing clicked until Invictus. Her mother and father, Bill and Kim Scanlon, recall this turning point in their daughter's life.
She's always been just a go-getter, and she's always been someone who's, again, doesn't take no readily. It's like, why not? How can I? And as we've kind of followed along her progress with her training, she's fallen in love with it.
We noticed over a 6-month period that, hey, the old Kelly's coming back, and it couldn't have made us happier to, as mom and dad sitting back and watching and go, hey, I think Kelly's on a road to recovery.
Mom and Dad's enthusiasm for the games wasn't shared immediately by Kelly, but now her passion has definitely come through.
Honestly, when I started with Invictus, I expected to get nothing out of it. I expected to get a good story that when I was miserable 10 years down the road, I could at least look back and be like, I did this thing. But honestly, the games haven't even happened, and I've gone way beyond what I expected, which was nothing, to getting what I actually wanted from my life again, wanting to have a future.
No matter how the games go for Kelly, Bill feels his daughter has already achieved the ultimate prize.
She's already won her gold medal. Just being there, being accepted onto the team, her well-being right now is turned around. I hope that she wins a medal, but if she doesn't, it doesn't matter to us. We love her, and we'll be there to support her every minute of the games.
Not all those supporting the competitors are family or friends. Volunteers are lending their time to ensure these games are as successful as possible. Michael Burns emphasized how critical this group of individuals really are.
Volunteers are essential. They are our energy, they're our ideas, and they are the passion of these games. We simply cannot deliver an international competition of this size and scale without the help of almost 2,000 volunteers.
Lois Gilbert, Workforce Chair for the Invictus Volunteer Program, has so far put in over 2,300 hours herself. She perfectly captures why the volunteers are so willing to donate their time to the soldiers.
These people go unconditionally out into harm's way. I think it's our responsibility to say thank you and to support whatever way we can, and especially when they come back and they are injured or they have an invisible injury.
The volunteer service to those who have served is not overlooked by the competitors, including Simon.
Civilians are part of our military, and we are part of the society too. It's a great opportunity with Canadians to reach out and shake hands and share our stories. Just say thank you.
Road to Recovery, Invictus Games 2017 will return. Welcome back to Road to Recovery Invictus Games 2017.
Over the past hour, we've learned a tremendous amount about the power of sport and its tangible impact on the lives of three remarkable individuals. Prince Harry's Invictus Games harnesses that energy for veterans like Lutz, reservists like Kelly, and full-time military personnel like Simon. As Greg Lagasse, the founder of Soldier On, says, there is a spirit to this event like none other on the international stage.
It's not about medals. It's about start and it's about the finish and it's about the camaraderie that happens in between the events. That's what those games are about, and you will be inspired yourself.
So starting September 23rd, know you're not just rooting for the triumphs of one person or nation. You're rooting for the efforts of all. In November, join us for part 2 of our in-depth look at the 2017 Invictus Games in Toronto, and continue on the road to recovery with Kelly, Lutz, and Simon.
The success of your team, the success of your fellow soldiers is something that I think a lot of us are just as excited to see as our own victories.
It's going to be fun. Right now I'm looking forward to getting Invictus over because it's hard training. Oh man, it's hard. Take a bit of vacation and then put my name in for the next Invictus.
It's great to have these nations to share with us. And you know, we're hosting this year, so it's important to us to put on a good show, make sure they feel welcome. But as I told them, when the whistle blows, game on.
Host, Anthony McLachlan. Producer, Ted Cooper. Director of Photography, Matthew McGurk. Videographer, Sergio Vera Barahona. Editors, Matthew McGurk, Andrew Antonello. Audio post, Mark Phoenix. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Simone Cupid. Graphics, Mike Smith. Post-Production Supervisor, Jennifer Johnson. Senior Producer, Michelle Dudas. Director Production, Karen Nye. Director Programming, AMI TV, Brian Perdue. Vice President Programming and Production, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2017, Accessible Media Incorporated.